We are back from the World Blitz Championship in Warsaw, Poland. I am Ludvig. With me is Irina, Krush, and we are congratulating the champions in the open section. We just saw Maxime Vachier-Lagrave winning that exciting playoff to take home the gold medal. Earlier today, we have seen the winner of the women's section. It's Bibisara Asoybayeva from Kazakhstan in dominating fashion, getting first a silver medal in the rapid championship 2 days ago, now going all the way for the gold. What a performance from her, Irina.
Yeah, absolutely. What a successful tournament from BB Sara. I mean, we knew she was a strong player. I felt that myself when I played her a few years ago in the World Rapid Championship, and she beat me very convincingly with the white pieces. And from that moment, I knew she was a serious player. But I think after this event, no one will ever underestimate her again.
And now we are going to be switching it up because we're going to be moving to a recap of the exciting thing we just witnessed on the board. This is the rapid recap, and it's how Maxime Vachier-Lagrave played in the final playoff against Jan-Krzysztof Duda, utilizing from the beginning his Spanish opening, which was just something he tried in the first playoff game, but he didn't switch around. He kept going for that same one, Irina.
Yeah, and that turned out to be a fateful decision as he was playing a position that it just felt that he wasn't super comfortable in, and Vachier's superior experience in these types of positions was a factor in how these games developed. The first game he managed to hold on through resourceful defense, but when Vachier made a small change after the opening in this game, Duda was not able to orient himself to the new circumstances.
So we have been seeing a Spanish opening with the pieces being developed in good fashion. Here, the first point of the game I want to point out, Jan-Krzysztof Duda retreating his knight, saying that this knight is better placed on d7, partly because then you're not blocking your pawn from potentially contributing to the game. Vachier-Lagrave played his moves very quickly because this is all the same moves that was played on the first attempt, which ended in a draw on the side of the board. He's using his pawn to put pressure in towards the black pawn.
Yes, and the black pawn advanced, pushing the knight forward into d5. Then the pawn on b4 needed protection, so there came the a5 pawn, and Vachier undermines those pawns with the move c3. There was a trade. He captured with the bishop, which puts the bishop attacking the a5 pawn, and Duda went with knight c5. White captures on f6 in order to clear the d5 square for his bishop. He doesn't want to retreat it passively. He wants to have that nice square in the center. And after black recaptures, white goes bishop d5, rook a7, and here is where Vachier comes up with a change. He goes queen c2 rather than the move d4, which he did in the first game. It's a very interesting moment. I would be very curious to ask him what advice did he have, or just his own inspiration, because the computer at first glance does actually like the move that he chose for the first game. He likes the move d4, and yet he changes it and basically traps Duda into making a pretty big mistake on the next turn.
So after the queen move, Duda put his bishop out, attacking the white knight, assuming that that knight had to move away. But instead, now Vachier-Lagrave pushed his pawn up in the center, the idea being that if white's knight is captured, Vachier-Lagrave would continue forward with his pawn in the middle of the board, just getting this one up, causing all sorts of trouble. So instead, Duda decided to eliminate the pawn while he had the option to do so, but that allowed the white knight to jump in, not only to this d4 square, but it's headed further up the board.
Yes, this is very unfortunate for Duda. He retreated his bishop to d7, so that was a total loss of time for him to go to g4. And when the knight arrived on b5, this was his last chance in this game. Actually, it turned out to be a very big mistake to capture that knight and give white the b5 pawn. Black should have played rook a6 instead, keeping more attention in the game, threatening the move c6. Would have been interesting how Vachier would have gotten out of that. I guess he was afraid to do that because bishop takes f6 looks pretty scary, doesn't it?
Yeah,
I mean, yeah.
the trade of bishops would make the queen decide between recapturing and protecting the black pawn. Capturing back with the queen is the obvious move, but then you would lose a pawn. So that is definitely the reasoning for why Duda felt he needed to capture this knight immediately. However, in that ensuing position, white's pawn is controlling the a6 square, the bishop is controlling the b7 and a8 square, and those are all the squares the black rook can move to. So black's rook just got completely shut out of the game, and that was pretty much the deciding factor to give Maxime Vachier-Lagrave this world championship.
Yeah, he won the game because of that beautiful bishop that did so much for him on this board. As we know, bishops love open diagonals, and the more diagonals they control, the better. And this game showed the absolute power of this bishop.
After the trade of the other pair of bishops, Duda tried to push forward on the side, but Maxime Vachier-Lagrave was very clever in how he just put his pieces towards the middle of the board. Basically, Vachier-Lagrave is saying the black rook is unable to participate in the game. I should try and open up for my rooks while the black rook is still in trouble. And so he pushed forward his pawn in the middle. Now, if there's a trade here, then he has been successful in opening up the rook and the queen. Instead, Duda, realizing how much trouble he was in, he tried to go for the queen exchange.
Yes, he went for the queen exchange, giving up a pawn. So queen takes b6, rook takes b6. Unfortunately, it doesn't just, solve his problems giving away that pawn. White's pawns are doubled, but the b5 pawn is effectively just a pure extra pawn. And the worst part is that it's keeping the rook on b6 very passive. And so this is not a game where Duda is able to muster up a lot of chances after losing material.
He did try to get his bad rook into the game, pushing his pawn forward. He was able to open up the chances for that rook, but at the cost of being down this other pawn. And Vachier-Lagrave very, very well just knew what to do. He's using his rook on the 7th rank, and he's trying to get the other rook to partner with his teammate. And these rooks, in conjunction with the bishop joining the party as well, it was just devastating. Look at all that pressure in towards the black queen, the black king, and the pawn defending it.
Yeah, once those rooks arrived on the 7th, it was bad news for Duda. He tried to keep white from capturing that pawn by going rook d3, a tricky little move, because now you cannot take the pawn since you will lose your bishop after the rook trade. But that did not faze Vachier-Lagrave. He improved his king with king g2. And after...
Sorry, I lost the position.
No problem.
We were here with the rook pointing down on the white rook, king d2.
King g2, king g7, and then just simply moving his bishop away to c4, offering up a trade of one of those rooks because majority of his advantage still remains. I mean, black cannot even move his knight from the back rank here.
Yeah, the knight is stuck defending the black pawn. The rook is stuck trying to defend against a white pawn, trying to become a new queen. Duda tried to activate his king, but that was a great moment for Vachier-Lagrave to push his pawn forward, exploiting the fact that the rook cannot capture the pawn without simultaneously releasing the defense of the knight. So it was just perfect technique here from the Frenchman, getting this pawn as high up as possible, and then he made the trade between bishop and knight, giving himself a rook endgame.
Yes, unfortunately, black's rook is positioned in the wrong place. It should be on the other side of the pawn. As we say, the rooks like to be behind passed pawns where they can be active and attacking other pawns. This rook on b8, super passive, and it can never even move because rook c8 would just allow white to promote the pawn immediately.
So the rook is stuck. Instead, Duda tried pushing his pawns up the side of the board, but all Maxime Vachier-Lagrave needed to do now is try and infiltrate with his king against these black pawns, and he did so by playing his pawn up on the side. Because after the trade between these two pawns, it's clear that white's king is on its way forward. Duda prevented white's king from joining the party in the first instance, but here, after Maxime Vachier-Lagrave moved his king, it's actually a Zugzwang position, because no matter what black does, you're making your situation worse. If you move your king back, you allow white's king to move forward. So instead of moving the king, Duda tried to move the rook, but with the rook no longer putting pressure on white's pawn, MVL decided that, well, I can use this opportunity to take another pawn with my rook on the side of the board. And this is where Duda realized, I'm 2 pawns down, there's no saving me. He resigned the game, and Maxime Vachier-Lagrave became the world champion.
Yeah, and a very deserved winner who beat Magnus Carlsen on his way to becoming the World Blitz champion. It doesn't get any harder than that. So full credit to him, and a lot of credit to our women's World Blitz champion, the young player from Kazakhstan, Bibisara Asobayeva, making her name known to the whole world.
So those are the 2 winners of this event. Asobayeva and also Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. Congratulations to the 2 of them. And that wraps up this rapid recap.
Yeah, so I would like to just say a few closing words. First of all, thank you to Chess.com for inviting us to host this event. I was really happy to do this, happy to work with you, Yoon, and to hear your insightful and dynamic commentary. And it's been a great few days. Thank you to our viewers, guys, there were tens of thousands of you with us for all of these days. And it's been great having this experience with all of you. This has been one of my favorite tournaments to close out the chess year.
And with that, we don't have anything more for you. This has been the FIDE World Rapid and Blitz Tournament. I have been Ludvig. With me, Irina Krush, helping out with the commentary.
And the pronunciation.
Yeah, in particular, the pronunciation. Yes, thank you. And we hope to be back some other time. Have a happy new year, everyone.
Happy New Year, guys. See you in 2022.